everyone, my name is Luis, and today we're going to be upgrading the brake system in my Pontiac Trans Am. If you watched my last video I did on this car, you'll know that the suspension system is also really worn out and the braking system is also no better. I mean, when I'm trying to stop, the whole wheel shakes. The brake rotors in this car are severely warped. It almost makes it seem like the wheel alignment is off sometimes because one of the calipers tends to like stick a little bit, and so if I brake too hard, it'll have that brake memory and it'll like throw off my alignment. Now look, I could just replace the rotors and the brake pads and the calipers and be done with it. But I did some research and I found that there's a very affordable Brembo brake upgrade for this car. And I think it might even be cheaper than just replacing the stock brakes. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I do the upgrade. And I'm going to keep track of all the costs. That way at the end of the video, we're going to go over and see if it actually might be cheaper than just replacing the stock brakes. Alright, let's get to work. Now, after doing some research, I found that the 4-piston Brembo upgrade that I'm going to be doing is called the ATS-V brake upgrade. This caliper can be found on a bunch of different cars. It just happens to be that the Cadillac caliper is the cheapest one to buy. But this caliper can be found on a 2014 to 2018 Corvette, 2016 to 2020 Camaro SS, 2013 to 2019 ATS-V, 2016 to 2020 CT6, and the 2014 through 2019 CTS-V. So you have options if you want to find this caliper. You don't have to get it from an ATS-V. So I actually bought some of these calipers already. I found these on eBay. You know, they're used. They came off of some car, I think, that was getting parted. Now, I am planning to use these Cadillac calipers, but then something surreal happened to me in the garage. I found these calipers that are literally the exact same caliper that I need for this upgrade. I was cleaning in the garage and I found them tucked away, and these are actually calipers that my dad painted and got them ready to swap into a car. These must have been in the garage sitting at least 5 years because he passed away 5 years ago now. So I'm just so surprised that I found these in the garage. I didn't have my car 5 years ago, and my dad did not have a 4th generation F-body either. And I'm kind of curious and wondering why he customized these calipers with the Trans Am sticker on them. So I think that's a sign for me that I need to use these calipers instead, since my dad put the effort in to paint them. But you can find some calipers that are used on eBay and detail them, paint them, get some caliper paint, and do the same thing to them like my dad did already. Continue with the parts list, we also need some new rotors. This is the rotor we're going to be using. It's off of a base C7 2014 to 2019 Corvette. The RPO code is a JL9. The Corvette came with multiple brake packages. You need this JL9 base Corvette rotor. The JL9 is going to be a 12.6 inch rotor. The WS6 wheels are not going to clear the front of the caliper, so I need some spacers to bring the wheel out a little bit. In the forums, they say that using a 15mm spacer is enough to clear the WS6 wheels. One more thing to note, we're also going to have to cut the wheel studs down in order for these to fit. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Obviously, we're going to need some brake pads. You'll want to get some that fit the caliper that you're going to be using. And while looking through the forum, I found out that the stock brake lines from your car should bolt right up to the calipers, so you don't need brake lines. But I decided to get some steel braided ones, and hopefully these are long enough to fit. Now for the bolts, we're going to need some 14mm bolts by 2mm thread pitch by 45mm in length. And we're going to need 4 of them. They're going to need to be 10.9 grade bolts. And the last thing we're going to need is a few drill bits because we are going to be drilling the existing caliper holes. We're going to need a 1/2 inch drill bit and then a 9/16 inch drill bit. After going over the parts list, now we can put the car in the garage and get started. All the parts that I use in this upgrade are all going to be listed in the description. I'm going to put some links down where you can buy the exact same things that I bought. And if you're enjoying this video so far, I'd appreciate if you left me a like and consider subscribing, because I'm going to be doing a lot of upgrades to this car and you're really going to want to see it. Now back to the upgrade. Obviously the first part of this is removing all of the old braking system components. That means the caliper. I left the brake hose attached to the caliper and hanging. That way I could do the rest of the upgrade without worrying about losing too much brake fluid. And this is the part where the drill bits come in handy. First, I'm going to be using the 1/2" drill bit to drill through the spindle holes that mounted the original caliper. And after that, I just stepped up to the 9/16 drill bit and did the exact same thing. For me, this process wasn't too difficult. You just had to hold the drill kind of steady. And after that, I mounted up the rotor and then I put the spacer on. I put all the lug nuts on so that I can measure where I need to cut the wheel studs so that they sit flush on the spacer surface. After marking all of the wheel studs, then I took the spacer and the rotor off, and then I tried to secure the wheel hub as best as I could. Took out an angle grinder and I put a cutting disc on it, and that's where I started chopping up all of the wheel studs. Once I finished cutting all the wheel studs, that's when I put the rotor back on and the spacer to see if my fitment was good. The wheel studs had a little bit of excess burr on the edges, so it was a little hard to feed the lug nuts on, so I used the socket to help me get the lug nut started on the threads. At this point, I'm done with the rotor and I'm going to rotate the steering wheel to give me better access for the caliper to go on. Hey, real quick, I designed this Trans Am shirt. It's something I'd actually want to wear, and I've got it up for sale now. It helps support what I'm doing here on the channel, so if you want to check it out, the link's down below. We're going to go ahead and apply some blue Loctite to the bolts. That way any vibrations won't cause the bolts to loosen over time. Online I found a torque spec of 110 foot-pounds, so that's what I ended up going with. I did see on the forums that some people had to trim the washers that they ended up using, but for me they all sit flush. Here's a closer look at the hardware and the brake hose that I'm going to be using. I found that it was actually kind of cheap to buy on Amazon, so there's a link in the description for the one I used. Also note that I put the crush washers on either side of the banjo, that way I could get a good seal. This brake hose doesn't have a specific orientation, so I aimed it upwards. I didn't show it on camera, but the torque spec for the bolt that goes into the caliper ended up being 30 foot-pounds. So it's important for whatever brake hose you end up using, you follow the torque specifications that they give you, because I've read on the forums of people breaking that bolt into the caliper. And as you can see, I left the old brake hose attached to the caliper up until the very last second. That way when I was done with the entire install is when I can go ahead and remove the old brake line. That way I didn't drip too much old brake fluid. Unlike the old brakes, these new Brembos are kind of convenient because you don't actually have to unbolt the caliper in order to service them. They're held in place with that plate that provides some tension along with those pins that hold it in place, and it's pretty basic, to be honest. And besides bleeding the brakes, that's pretty much all that's involved to swap these brakes into your car. It's kind of easy. So I've been running my brakes for a few days now. I've put maybe 300 miles on the car, and I wanted to report how I felt about the new brakes. Initially, when I was driving the car, I didn't notice an immediate performance increase, and that's probably because I didn't bleed the brakes properly the first time around, and so I had to bleed the brakes the second time, and then that second time I definitely noticed a different pedal feel. I would say under normal driving they're not really that different from the stock brakes, but when I wanted to stop really fast I definitely noticed that the caliper would clamp down on the rotor way harder than the original brakes would. I still need to put the spacers on the rear wheels, so right now there's like a little bit of an offset issue. This front sticks out a little bit more than the back, but that's kind of like cosmetics for me. Overall, I would say I'm pretty happy with the upgrade. It works way better than the stock brakes worked, although the stock brakes were kind of bad, so I can't really compare like 100%, because the stock brakes I had were already worn out, so it's not like a true apples to apples comparison. And now it's time that we do the cost breakdown, and we'll go over how much I spent on these brakes, and then we'll also do a test of how much it would cost if you were just replacing the stock brakes. We can go ahead and tally up all those numbers and see if we come out ahead, or we're a little bit behind, or if they're equal. And one more thing before I give you the pricing, you got to cut me a little bit of slack here, because the brake upgrade I kind of sourced online, so I found the cheapest possible way to do it. And the pricing I'm going to give you for just revamping the stock brakes is all going to be from parts from AutoZone. And so obviously if you buy from a store, the price is going to be more expensive than if you found them online. But if you're like a regular guy and you're just going to replace all of your parts, then you might go to a store like AutoZone instead of like shopping on Amazon or eBay to find your parts. First, we're going to do the stock brakes. So if I bought them from AutoZone, the calipers Each one is $84.99 plus a $29 core charge. The rotors would be $133.98. The brake pads would be $51.49. The brake lines are the same cost because they both fit the Brembo brakes and the original brakes, and that one is $34.24. The total comes out to $389.69. Now it's time to do the cost breakdown of the Brembo brakes. I bought the calipers on eBay, although I did end up using the ones that my dad gave me. I was originally planning to use the ones that I showed you on camera. The left one came out to $61.57. The right one came out to $60.69. The rotors were $84.19. The brake pads are actually the same cost from AutoZone, whether you choose the stock brakes or these Brembo brakes. So it's $51.49. The brake lines are the same. The bolts, you can find them on Amazon for $14.79. The drill bits that I used were $23.29. The wheel spacers were kind of pricey. They were $74.99. And that brings our total out to $405.25. So that makes the Brembo brakes only about $15 more expensive than just redoing all the stock brakes. And I don't know about you, but $15 sounds pretty damn good to be able to upgrade your brakes to Brembos. I mean, you get a more modern brake setup that's very easily serviceable because it's all stock components for a newer car. It's not using some true aftermarket brake systems like from companies like Bear or Willwood, where you have to buy replacement parts from them. This is stuff that you can go to the store and replace as needed. And sure, if you buy calipers online and you don't like the color, you might have to add a few more dollars for sandpaper and caliper paint. But you know, that's part of the project car hustle. Like, there's going to be little costs here and there that bring it up. And if you're working on your own car and you want to do modifications, then you need to have a little bit of ingenuity. You need to have a little bit of that hot rod attitude, because if you just want to pay your way through, then obviously it's going to be really expensive. But there's ways to get performance cheap. Personally, I'm someone that loves working on my car, not just driving it. I almost prefer working on my car more than driving the car, especially with the fact that I get to use my dad's calipers, because one of the biggest reasons why I even like these cars is because of my dad. So to have that like emotional connection with every step of the process I do on this car is really special for me. And lastly, I want to say thank you guys for watching. If you're subscribed, thank you for being subscribed, and if you're not, consider subscribing. I'm going to be documenting a whole bunch of content that I do with this car. It's going to be really fun. You're going to want to see it. Thank you guys.